Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name is Buzz Lightyear, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you should absolutely. This is so stupid, so dumb. All right, let's get into the video. Hi there, my name is AJ, and in today's episode, we're gonna be going over my second cabin purchase. How much did it cost me? How much am I looking to put into the cabin? What are some of the updates that I'm looking to do? And then ultimately, how much do I think this cabin is actually going to produce for me and my partner? And if you're new to the channel, welcome. I talk everything short-term rental, Airbnb, Vrbo, wherever your short-term rental is listed, I talk about it. But before we get into the video, if you could smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, I feel like my thumb is super weird, but if you could smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, I would really appreciate it. So the cabin that I purchased is located in Young Harris, Georgia. So if you look on a map, my original cabin is in Blue Ridge, and this cabin is in kind of the Blairsville area. So it's really about a 35 or 40-minute drive from each of the cabins. Now again, this is still kind of in that Smoky Mountains kind of area where there's a lot of people who look for cabins and kind of getaways from the city of Atlanta, which is why I absolutely love this area. And I basically came across Blairsville, Young Harris, as I was driving through all of these different places. I looked at probably 15 to 20 different cabins, made offers on around 5, and then finally this one came through. So a little bit more detail on this cabin. Now, this cabin is a little bit larger than my previous cabin in Blue Ridge, which is a 1-bedroom, 1.5 bath with really, one level. Now with this cabin, it is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, property. It's also got a porch, it's got a larger kind of fire pit area, and of course there's a lot of different things that I can do with that because there's a lot more space on the property. The previous cabin that I had in Blue Ridge was very turnkey. In fact, that cabin in Blue Ridge was already on a short-term rental program when I purchased it, which made it a lot easier to basically turn it around, optimize it, and continue to make money off of it. This one, it's never been on a short-term rental program, but there's a couple of things that I absolutely love about this cabin. Now, some of the things that I love about this cabin, it is kind of that A-frame-ish structure. It's got a great screened-in porch, it's got 2 bedrooms, it's got 2 baths, it's got an awesome fireplace, and it's very secluded. It's also only a short drive from downtown Blairsville, which is this gorgeous kind of little town where people love to go to just get away. So the aesthetic of this is absolutely gorgeous. There's gonna be a lot of updates that I'm putting into it, which we'll go through here in just a minute, but I'm absolutely excited and stoked for this particular purchase. Now, before I get into the numbers, let's talk about a couple of the updates that I am planning on doing. So there's gonna be a couple of updates with the deck, there's gonna be a couple of updates with the paint and interior, there's gonna be kind of basically a whole redesign of all of the different spaces in the cabin so that it flows a little bit better. The paint is really terrible in there. I wanna paint the cabins, wanna get new appliances in there, make it really nice so that my guests are more likely to book and then also return and have a great review for me when they've actually booked the property. So as per usual, let's jump over to my handy dandy spreadsheet and we can kind of break this down. Of course, this spreadsheet and others, as well as my guides, you can always get from me if you want. Feel free to message me at ajhustlesyt@gmail.com and I can send those your way. And of course, if you're interested in having a call with me, talking through some of what your plans are for short-term rentals, and if there's any way or any advice that I can give, feel free to set up one of those calls with me. I've had a lot of calls already, and I know that it has helped a ton of people. So if you'd like to do that, feel free to reach out to me at that same email address. But let's jump into the spreadsheet and break down the numbers. All right, welcome back to my spreadsheet. If you haven't seen this before, go check out some of my videos on how I goal myself and how to make sure that you can do the exact same thing. Using this exact spreadsheet, of course, you can get it, and I already told you about that. So let's just dive into this deal. Now, this deal is a little bit different from my previous cabin purchase because I went in 50-50 with a partner, meaning that I put up 50% of all of these costs, or will be putting up 50% of all these costs, and then my partner is actually taking the mortgage and we'll split all of the profits right down the middle as well as all of the expenses. Now, this is going to work out great for my partner because they are not involved at all and I am doing basically all of the grunt work, but it allows me to get in on this particular property for 10% instead of investment property, which can cost 20%. So I'm still getting a high cash on cash return, meaning I don't have to put as much into the property and I can continue to get that revenue out. Now let's talk about the cost of the house. Now the cost of the house was $203,000, meaning that my down payment was about $20,000. Again, I'm just going to do this as if I was paying for everything, but again, at the very end, we'll be splitting all of this profit down the middle. Now, the estimated closing cost that I had was $9,218, and then my furnishings and renovations. Now, when I first thought about getting this property, I did not think I would have to put as much work as I realized into the property once we got a little bit closer, did some inspections. So I'm actually going to be putting in a ton more work into the property, which is fine because I know that I'm going to be able to recoup that money, but it does mean that my cash on cash return on this particular property is going to be lower because I am going to be putting a lot more money forward. So based on my estimates, I've got to do a ton of cleaning, I've got to do repainting, I've got to refurnish, I've got to do some updates on hardware, as well as some of the different things that are in the kitchen, as well as kind of some work on our deck and making sure that everything's sealed properly and termites and blah, 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 blah. So all of that furnishing and that renovation is, I have estimated to be around $22,000. So let's just say it's $22,150 is basically what we're thinking that we're going to put into this property. Now, the cash to close, plus the furnishing is basically that $51,000. Now, I keep this in the same bucket just because it's easier for me to look back and say, how much did I originally invest in this property to get that money out? And that's what I base my cash on cash return out of. Now, here we have our interest rate. Now, this is something that totally very, very different from my previous cabin, which I think my interest rate was like a 3.1 or something like that. Now my interest rate is around a 6. But again, don't let interest rates scare you because there is a lot more to interest rates than, oh, we have high interest rates and that means that, it's not a good deal. The numbers tell the story, and that for me is the most important thing, is that if I can make this profitable with these interest numbers, great. So let's talk about this. So we've got the interest rate, we've got the loan, and we've also got the loan amount. Okay, so we've got our interest rate. We have a term limit, or basically a term is our 30 years. So we're gonna pay off that mortgage in about 30 years. We have that loan amount. We have that principal and interest, which is incorrect there. So let's talk about how much I'm actually paying monthly. So my monthly principal plus interest is $1,048. And then I've got my home insurance, which is $125. Again, I'm still paying kind of PMI on top of that, so it might seem a little bit high. And then my taxes are $48. So if we take the sum of these three, this is going to be my monthly payment, okay? $1,221. So that is what I have to pay back on this property each and every month. So what does that actually mean for how I was calculating this particular property? Now, with the AirDNA numbers, which I'm not saying are 100% correct, what I found out on this particular property was that I could make $150 and be occupied 73% of the time. Now, that is basically based off of AirDNA's numbers, and I do not saying that those are 100% right, but that's basically saying that I could do about $40,000 on this particular property. I think that I can do more, but I also based all of my goal setting, all of my numbers, and the purchase of this property by being, again, ultra conservative and putting in those kind of worst case scenarios. So this is what, would be kind of a good case scenario, but I still think that I can do better on this property. That's even given, kind of where the market is, and we've seen, lots of Airbnbs, there's no occupancy, I can't get people, the algorithm has changed, blah, 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 excuses. That's not what we're here to talk about. So we've got all of our gross revenue, we've got that net profit here. So that is how much profit do I think I'm going to be bringing in each and every month based on these occupancy and average daily rates. So that would mean that if everything goes according to this plan, I would be making about $1,500 per month. Cut that in half. It's about $750 per month with that cash and cash return of about 35%. So pretty good, meaning that, a little bit under 3 years, this property is completely paid off. Now, the way that I based my numbers off of were a couple of different things. Again, I didn't think that I was going to be putting in as much furnishing and renovation into this property as I'm actually doing, so that has changed things, but it's still okay. So here is how I made my final decision. Now, whenever I look at my decisions, I say, okay, what if these AirDNA numbers are wrong and I actually can't make $150? I can only make, $120. And let's say that my occupancy is actually, 65%. Well, what does that mean? If I can get that, 60 or 50% occupancy with still being profitable, again, we can go down to 55 if we want, and then maybe we go down to 50%. I'm still, not that I'm making a lot of money, I'm still able to pay everything off. Meaning that, in my opinion, this was a great investment because my list price is being very conservative compared to what I'm also seeing in the market. I went and checked out, a ton of Airbnbs in the neighborhood. I felt pretty good about the numbers. And then we've got that list price being super conservative and that occupancy still being super conservative. So with all that in mind, here is how I am planning my goal. Now, I don't think that basing my goal off of that 39,000 is the best way to do it. The way that I am thinking about this is I want a higher occupancy, meaning that I will go even more conservative than what AirDNA is telling me and kind of what I based my rental off of. So my average daily rate on this property, what I'm going to be goaling myself, meaning what I'm going to be comparing my profits to, is going to be a list price of about $109. That's being very conservative with all of the different things that I'm going to be putting into the property. Now, again, that occupancy rate is also something that I'm being fairly conservative with. It's actually higher than what AirDNA is, but I think I'm able to get that occupancy. So at 80% is what I am basing my goal off of. So with this property, my plan is to have the average daily rate of about $100 and then my occupancy to be about 80%. This is what I want and kind of what the basis of what I am feeling that I can for sure do and make sure that I can hit this number. So that would mean that my cash on cash return is about 19%. Again, on my property in Blue Ridge, it is higher than a 70%. So I'm not saying that I can totally crush this number, but I do want to make this my goal, meaning that I'll have 60 months payback, so a little bit more than 5 years in paying all of this back. So again, the property is very cheap. I know that I'm going to get a lot of equity very quickly with the market, even with the market the way it is. I know that I can get a great monthly payment. I'm going to be adding a lot of furnishings and different things to the actual property so that we can hit this number. And then really the other piece of this is, we have this list price. In reality, I think that I am going to be able to do something more along the lines of $135 as my daily rate with an 80% occupancy. And I still think that we're probably going to be more around that 34%. But that's kind of that stretch goal. So my goal for this particular property is to have it at about a 20% cash on cash return, which to me is great. I didn't have to put, $51,000 in on this particular deal. I'll be putting in, around $26,000 when it is all said and done. So that is basically the goal that I have for this particular property. So that is basically cabin number 2 by the numbers. Now you can see into exactly what my strategies are for purchasing the cabin, why I think it's a great investment, what I think I can do, and then what I'm goaling myself off of. And I know that I talk about, goals a lot, but I think it's really, really important to understand how you can push yourself, how you make sure that you stick to a plan, and then also eventually, be able to beat that plan, which is always really satisfying, and you see it every single time that I do an update with my first cabin. Basically, the plan is to have this particular cabin up and running by August 1st. It is basically a rat race to get everything done by then. I've got painters, I've got people installing hot tubs, I've got electricians in there, I've got kind of reno people. All of these things are happening at the same time. It's a whole project. I feel like I've all of a sudden become a project manager. It's a lot of fun, but again, making sure that you can get your particular property up and running is one of the most important things, because what I don't want this to do is basically drag out for months and months, and then all of a sudden I am losing money and losing time, and my money isn't working for me. Now, if you liked any of the content, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. Smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe. I am appreciative of every single one of you who jumps on the channel, who communicates with me, who jumps on a call with me. I am so grateful. Now, if you're interested in any of the software that I use to evaluate properties, to basically run my business, feel free to check that out in the description. Feel free to sign up on Airbnb using my link. When you do that, you actually get a bounce back every time, or basically the first time that you host a guest. So again, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. Peace.